everyone, my name is Rose Bishop, and today, on behalf of the Flute New Music Consortium, I am here today with Mikel Kuehn to talk with him about his award-winning work, Chimera. Chimera won the Flute New Music Consortium's Flute and Piano category of the 2021 Composition Competition. Welcome, Mikel. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Thanks, Rose. I'm excited too.
Could you tell us more about yourself and your musical background and how you began composing?
Okay, I'll try to keep it short, I guess. I was raised by musicians, kind of like wolves, I suppose. And I studied piano and percussion, and then later got into jazz, where I sort of did both, played in orchestra and band and jazz. Also, I lived in Los Angeles during high school, and that was a big kind of heyday of the jazz period, like the very tail end of it. And so I got to see a lot of, what we now consider a lot of the golden era icons of sort of the post bebop era in Los Angeles, which was really great. And then I went to school at University of North Texas for jazz studies, and I played mostly jazz vibraphone at the time. And kind of in the middle of my freshman year, I sort of decided to change my major to composition because I felt like I might learn more about the aspects of music that I was interested in as both a jazz player and someone who was kind of getting into composing because of doing improvisation and having to make arrangements for your combo and things like that. So that's, I guess, in a nutshell, how I got into it and my background. And I mentioned my parents are musicians, so I grew up in Texas before that, and my parents had a gig playing in the Richardson Symphony, which is a suburb of Dallas, and it's a good kind of local symphony that they have there. And this would have been in the 70s. So my father was the tuba player in the Richardson Symphony. My mom was one of the bass players. And so they would take me to the rehearsals, and I would sit right there between them because, that's how they set up. And so I got this great kind of, I guess, bird's eye view, you'd say, of what it was like to be making music at a kind of exciting level, and what it felt like without actually doing it. So I guess that was kind of an inspiration in some ways, those kind of experiences that you get as a kid with music.
That's so cool. It's always so fun to hear about everybody's sort of background and process and what all the things that you've been through in your life. That's awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
Can you tell us more about the inspiration behind writing this piece?
Sure. Well, in this particular piece, I happened to go to a concert, as we all have to do as musicians, go to lots of concerts. And this concert was two colleagues of mine at Bowling Green State University. The flute teacher at the time, Connor Nelson, who now teaches at University of Wisconsin-Madison, and the piano faculty member, Thomas Rosenkrantz, who now teaches at University of Missouri, Kansas City. And at the time they had this duo, and they played a lot of music, and they did at least once a year a concert at school and then other kind of run out concerts. And I happened to go to one where they played several pieces, but they did a performance of a piece by a British composer, Jonathan Harvey, that just blew my socks off. Just seeing them, this kind of energy level that they had between them and the musicality combined with that. I just was so excited. How you get, sometimes you'll see a performance that's just so good. And I immediately contacted him. I was like, hey, are you guys looking for pieces? Because I would love to just write for you, because I think you have this incredible just dynamic between the two of you. And so that's kind of what inspired me, really, was exactly that. And then also, as people, they're just two of the greatest people that I've ever worked with, and they're just such nice people. They're generous, outgoing, bubbly personalities, a lot of fun to be with. So that also is like an extra draw, bonus to that. So that's where that came from. Yeah, I guess that's all. I'll leave it with that.
Well, and it makes such a huge difference when you really admire the people you're writing for. That's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that's, for a lot of composers, a lot of times it's both a kind of personality and inspiration of what a person can do and their particular kind of musical personality, that might intersect with yours in a lot of ways. So that's what happened with me in this case.
So is that how you began composing in general, just hearing other people play and then wanting to write for them?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I kind of, like I mentioned, going into composition, not because I wanted to be a composer, but because I wanted to learn more about arranging and composition and things that were a little bit more abstract than what's normally taught in the jazz pedagogy. And so that really, that was just really something that was really, eye-opening to me. And it created opportunities to do little projects for classes and things like that. And I met a lot of people, and I just kind of wrote a few things and then got excited, about working with people. Actually, you mentioned this, I'm remembering that one of the first cool experiences I had wasn't actually with a piece I wrote, but it was with a flutist that was a student at University of North Texas. And this guy, his name was James Gebhardt. I haven't talked to him in like 35 years, so I have no idea what he does now. But he was really, generous with his time. And I said, hey, could we get together sometime? And would you perhaps show me some things that the flute can do? And so he brought all these flutes. First of all, I didn't even think he was going to bring an alto flute, and I think he brought an E flat flute. Is that right? An E flat flute? Yeah. Maybe, yeah, he did bring a bass flute too. So I took a cassette tape, because that's what we did in those days. And I recorded all this stuff. And I came with, kind of a cues, a bunch of questions that I asked him, like, what does it sound like in this register? And I was really interested also in extended techniques. So I would ask him, to play multiphonics and flutter tongues and alternate fingerings and things like that. And he did that. And I taped it all, for myself. And it was just really, eye-opening. And ever since, I've been hooked on the flute. It's just like a cool instrument.
Do you still have those cassette tapes?
Yes, I found this cassette tape the other day, and I don't have my cassette tape player available. It's in the attic, I think. So I have to get that out, dust it off, and then I haven't listened to it probably since the 80s, but because I think I lost it for a while. But it was just so cool, that he was showing me all this stuff. And I've done that with a lot of players over the years. That was kind of a real informative and good experience, that's stuck with me.
Oh, I love that. That's so fun.
Yeah.
So can you tell us more about what you like and what you find challenging about writing for flute?
Sure. Well, first of all, what I like about the flute is that it's such an expressive instrument. I guess all instruments played by humans are expressive, but the flute, because it works with the air and the breath. I mean, a lot of wind instruments, they're all like that, but the breath is so different on the flute, the way it produces things without a reed and all that stuff. But also the personality of the flute, that to have all these extended techniques, I feel like really that's not a good word anymore, because it's just part of the personality of the flute. Yeah. It just shows how we've been narrowly focused on a certain kind of tone production for so long. And that's changed in the last 30 or 40 years, of course. But yeah, I think it's just, it's an instrument that's very expressive. And so it speaks to me as, as a human from that kind of level. It's like the voice. And I don't know, there's just something I really like about it. But also, I think I like flutists, like the flutists tend to be very, I don't know, it's one of the oldest woodwind instruments, I guess, right? So the literature is pretty deep, even though there isn't a lot of solo literature till the W.C. Syrinx piece, I guess. But, the flute is almost in almost everything way back in music history since the Renaissance period and before. And so flutists have a lot of literature, and they also have, a lot of agile kind of music. And so flutists tend to be really great with rhythm and ensemble playing. I mean, I don't think I've met a flutist that I've ever worked with that wasn't, just like really good with rhythm, because you guys have all that, you have so much complexity. If you just look at any orchestral score, especially in the 20th century, and the flute parts, they're usually just one level up in terms of the rhythmic agility and the detail that goes into that. And so I'm a detail-oriented person, if you didn't notice that already. And I think that that's something about the flute that I really like too.
Yeah,
But you got to have the performers, that are this kind of attitude. It's like saxophonists are like that too. They're just like, come on, give me some music to
yeah.
play.
I feel like all flutists are just so excited to do anything that we just go for it no matter what's the
Uh-huh.
us. Yeah.
Yeah, that's been my experience. One of the first pieces I wrote was a flute quartet, and that was just such a cool experience because I didn't have any problems getting the performers, and they were just students at UNT. And they, just like the first string people that I called were just like, yeah, I'll do it. Who else is doing it? And you tell them one person that they like, and they're, oh yeah, I'll do that. So that was a cool experience. So flute is kind of like a go-to instrument for me. Like I suppose it's like my default instrument. If somebody said, hey, write a piece really fast, I would probably like write a flute solo or something because it just seems really natural.
Yeah. So have you written a lot of pieces for flute?
I don't know if it's a lot, but I probably have, I don't know, 10 or 15 pieces that have flute in them. And, some are more intimate pieces like two flutes and, trios and things, the flute quartet, things like that. And then every large ensemble piece or large chamber ensemble piece I've written never has at least one flute part. So yeah, I'd say like 75% of every piece I've written has the flute in it, just because, that's how important the flute is to me, like in terms of like the timbre and the texture and the role of the flute, things like that.
Well, that's awesome. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Oh, I don't think so, but I'd say that I think it's really great that the Flute New Music Consortium, has this contest and is actively just trying to bolster the repertoire of flute contemporary music, even though that doesn't seem like that'd be too hard to do because there are a lot of people interested. But it's nice to have, just an organization that's dedicated to that. That's so great. Yeah. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. We are so lucky that they exist and that they can do so many different things with their organization. And I feel very lucky to get to talk with you today. And congratulations again on winning the composition competition. That's really, really
Oh,
exciting.
thanks. Yeah, that's very exciting. So thanks.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to hearing your future works.